This way I can send people this video instead of having to go back and forth on messaging. All right, I think I'm live. I'm never really sure. So let's just do this. So what you're looking at is the disaster loan assistance from the SBA. This is the application for it. Now, keep in mind, the initial application is for a grant. The grant is $1,000 per employee. The loan is a separate thing. Okay, so what's going to happen here is that when you apply here, okay, you're going to receive a grant. If you are qualified, you'll get that money, and then they'll send you an email asking you to create an account with the SBA to then apply for the loan. I do not advise applying for the loan. Okay, if you apply for the loan, there are some requirements that you'll need to meet in order to have the loan forgiven. Otherwise, you will have to pay those funds back. All right, so let's talk about this. Number one, I want to make sure everyone understands that this is available for anyone. Okay, as long as you are an American citizen with a Social Security number, this is available for you. Reason being is because anyone with a Social Security number, aka tax ID number, is already operating as a business in the United States. There is no permits required, no licenses needed, no permission from the government to conduct business in the United States if you're an American citizen. You can simply walk outside your door, you can sell your socks, you can sell your clothes, you can sell your car, you can sell your services, you can watch babies, you can wash windows, you can wash cars. All of these things constitute a business. I did not pull up the definition for a business, but I will do that here so you can see this for yourself. I've had a couple arguments over the last couple weeks concerning this. I'm going to go here, trade or business defined by the IRS. The term trade or business generally includes an activity carried on for the production of income from selling goods or performing services. It is not limited to integrated aggregates of assets, activities, and goodwill that compromise businesses for purposes of certain other provisions of the Internal Revenue Code. Activities of producing or distributing goods or performing services from which gross income is derived do not lose their identity as trades or businesses merely because they are carried on within a larger framework of other activities that may or may not be related to the organization's exempt purposes. Let me explain what this means. All right. What this says is that the term trade or business generally includes any activity carried on for the production of income from selling goods and or services. We've already talked about this. If you're selling your clothes, if you're selling your car, that is a good. If you are performing services such as taxi services, if you're taking someone to the store, if you have a friend that pays you to take them to work, okay, that's a taxi service. If you are doing hair, that is a service. If you are landscaping, if you are cleaning, all of these are services. And if you're doing them in exchange for money or bartering, right, then these are considered businesses. I've had clients in the past that have told me stories about how someone was babysitting their children while they worked. In exchange, they provided food for the person. That is called bartering. That is still a revenue. That is still income. That food constitutes money, okay? And it's very easy to value that food. It's very easy to value the use of someone's home in exchange for babysitting, okay? There are all sorts of things that we do for each other on a day-to-day basis that constitute a business, all right? Now, this next sentence says it is not limited to integrated aggregates of assets, activities, and goodwill that comprise businesses for purposes of certain other provisions of the Internal Revenue Code, okay? What this sentence says is exactly what I've been talking to a lot of people about. When you talk to people and they ask, do you have a business? A lot of people think of a business, right, in the sense of, do you have a building? Do you have machines? Do you have employees? Do you have, I don't know. Do you have a corporation, right? Do you have an LLC? All of these things, right? Businesses are not limited to just that, okay? And that's where you get the integrated aggregates of assets. Integrated aggregates of assets are just assets, things that come together to form a business, right? If you don't have any assets, you're still a business, okay? It doesn't matter. Goodwill, that comes from accounting. Okay, that's an accounting term. That's when you purchase a company or things of that nature. I've talked about goodwill in my previous videos. You can go back and look at that. Maybe I'll try to tag that on this one. I think that'll be a good one to attach to this. But anyway, that's it. Activities of producing or distributing goods or performing services from which gross income is derived do not lose their identity as trades or businesses merely because they are carried on with a larger framework of other activities that may or may not be related to the organization's exempt purposes. Okay, what this is talking about is if you are a nonprofit. Okay, nonprofits can still have for-profit entities within them. Okay, nonprofits can also make profit. Okay, now nonprofits are taxed on those profits, but they are still for profit. Goodwill is a really great example of that. Goodwill is a nonprofit that also makes money as a business. They transfer items that we donate here in the U.S. and they transport them to Africa and other places and actually sell those things in stores, or they sell them to wholesalers in those countries, and they receive a profit from that. So imagine someone donates something for free to Goodwill. Goodwill then takes that same article of clothing and sells it to a wholesaler in another country. That's a for-profit business. They may pay taxes on that profit, but it does not, because they're a nonprofit, does not mean that they can't also be a business. That's what that's about. All right. Okay. So let's get back to the application. I wanted to go through this so everyone understood exactly what was going on. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I want to give something that I can point someone to so that they'll understand. All right. So first question asks, applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees. That is a requirement, okay? There's some other items here that I really don't think we need to go through much at all. There's applicant is an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship with or without employees or as an independent contractor. That is also an option for you, okay? The cooperative, the employee stock ownership, the tribal small business concern, agricultural cooperative, a business with more than 500 employees is not considered a small business anymore. And then, of course, the applicant is a private nonprofit organization. That does come to play in some cases if you're a private nonprofit, not a 501c3. Okay, that may be the option. But for most people, it's either going to be the first option or the third option. Honestly, either one you choose is going to be good because it doesn't matter. You're either going to use your Social Security number or your EIN number. Okay, that's how this application is going to go. So for this example, we're going to choose the first option. Okay. And then you must click all of these. Okay, applicant is not engaged in any illegal activity. The persons who own or are part of this business are not more than 60 days delinquent on child support. I think we've talked about that before. You cannot be behind on child support. Your business cannot provide any sexual services or any sexual products. Okay, so that's going to include the dildos, the vibrators, and all those things. Okay. Applicant does not derive more than 1/3 of gross revenue from legal gambling activity. So you cannot be a casino. You can't be a bingo hall. Okay. Applicant is not in the business of lobbying. I think everyone knows what lobbying is. You can't be part of Congress. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's the first page. Very straightforward. Okay, here we're going to put in the business name. Now, if you are a sole proprietor, this is going to be your first and last name. Okay, trade name, again, first and last name if you're a sole proprietor. Otherwise, you can put in whatever DBA or assumed name you may have. Okay, all right, so EIN or Social Security number, you have to choose either or. This is really important. The EIN number must match the EIN number on the bank account that you're wanting the money to deposit to. Okay, so if you're applying for this as a corporation, then you must use an EIN number that's attached to the bank account, which means you have to have a bank account that has the EIN number on it. It has to be a business account. If this is going to be a sole proprietorship, if you're using your Social Security number, you must make sure that the bank account has your name as well as your Social Security number connected to the account. Okay, and then organization type. Again, you have these options here. All right, independent contractor, sole proprietorship, or other. All right, but there are a bunch of options here. I've talked about partnerships in my previous videos. These are really great vehicles. You can have your Social Security number, potentially, a partner's Social Security number apply for this. Okay, so that's two, and then you can turn around and then file for a partnership. That's 3. All right. So some really great benefits and things to look at here. Again, if you have questions, I'm always available. I can't and I don't want to go into every single little detail. This video has already gone on too long, right? But again, the partnership is a really great vehicle that can be used for a lot of great things, not only this. All right. Okay. Is the applicant nonprofit? You want to make sure you click no. Are you a franchise? You want to make sure you click no. Okay. Now, this is where we get to the meat of this. All right. Gross revenues for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster, which is they're saying is January 31st, 2020. Now, what this means is, what are your gross revenues for 2019? Now, listen to me, please. If you are putting gross revenues on this line, you must make sure that you have gross revenues on your 2019 tax return. If you don't, you run the risk of being audited and have this money automatically being owed back to SBA. If any of you have ever dealt with FEMA when it came to what was the name of the hurricane? I forget now. Katrina. Yeah. If you've ever dealt with the FEMA payments and Katrina having to pay that back, you don't want to be part of this. Okay. This money is being sponsored and the debt isn't going away. All right. They're going to figure out a way to get it from you, whether it be withholding tax return, tax refunds, maybe wage garnishment. I doubt it, but that is always an option. Okay. So you want to make sure that you are filing a 2019 tax return with these revenues on this line on that return. Now, please understand, gross revenues is not profit. So you can have gross revenues of $10,000. You can have expenses of $10,000, making your profit 0 and not paying any additional tax. If you've already filed a 2019 tax return, you can simply amend that tax return. Okay. Now, the amendment takes 4 months to process. Right now, the IRS isn't even processing amendments, so maybe 6 months. But as long as you have it on file that you mailed it and they have it there, you're good. Okay, none of this stuff is even going to be looked at or audited. I'm thinking at least for another year, but I don't know. No one knows. Okay, all right. So again, now I'm recommending. Okay, I'm recommending gross revenues be at least $10,000. All right. I have filed these in the past with as little as $3,000 there. Okay, but I'm recommending 10,000. If you want to do less, please do less. 10,000, I think, is a really good number to make sure that you get in. Now, cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is only for businesses that are selling things. Okay, so if you're selling cars, if you're selling clothes, if you're selling socks or anything, makeup, right? Mary Kay, right? You're going to have cost of goods sold. It's very important that you put something in here for cost of goods sold. Otherwise, this application is null and void because, again, you're saying that you're selling things and you have revenue from selling those things, but you don't have cost of goods sold. So you want to make sure that you have cost of goods sold here. And the cost of goods sold has to make sense, okay? If you're not sure what numbers make sense, talk to someone. Speak to your accountant. Speak to someone you can trust with financial advice, all right? If you're selling, let's say, clothes, right? Typically, you may be able to double your money, maybe. For the most part, if you're selling clothes, you may be getting a 25% profit margin, right? So if your gross revenues are $3,000, then maybe your cost of goods sold is something like $2,000. Okay, that's if you're selling things. If you're not selling things, if you're providing services, then you're not going to have a cost of goods sold at all. Okay, at all. Now, the next line, rental properties. Okay, this is something that I've talked about quite a bit. If you are renting, if you own, if you're paying a mortgage, you always have the opportunity to rent out a portion of your home, a portion of your apartment. All right. And so you are able to list the rents that you lost due to Corona. Personally, I rented my apartment on Airbnb. Therefore, I can show rental losses of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Okay. Please understand this is concerning 2020. Okay. This first line are your gross revenues from that rental property in 2019. Okay. So if in 2019 you made $3,000 in rent, right? then you can't lose 3,000 in 2020 unless you only rented your place for maybe a month or two in 2019. Does that make sense? Let me back up and say this again. If your rental revenue for the whole year 2019 was only 3,000, then your lost rents from January up to now, which is July, probably isn't going to be $3,000, right? Unless, like I said, you only rented your property for a couple months. And that information is going to be found on what? Your 2019 tax return. When you file your 2019 tax return, or when you amend your 2019 tax return, you'll be asked, when did you begin to rent your property? You have to put a date there. The default is going to be January of 2019, of course, right? But then that means the whole year. Maybe you only rented it for 1 month of 2019, okay? But you can easily lose, $4,000 or $5,000 in the course of 6 months in 2020. All right. Nonprofit or agricultural enterprise cost of operation. So again, this is going to be the last 12 months, and this is going to be on a 2019 tax return. This is if you have a farm, if you are raising animals or selling crops, if you have a nonprofit. Okay, remember the nonprofit must be a private nonprofit and not a 501c3, not a public charity. It has to be private. Okay. I've talked about private nonprofits in previous videos. You can go back and check those out. All right, compensation from other sources received as a result of the disaster. This is going to be maybe any sort of insurance you may have received, or any other grants or money received from some other organization other than the SBA. As you see, there's no asterisk here, so you can leave that blank. Okay. And then they ask you to provide a brief description of those compensation sources. Again, you can leave that blank if you didn't have any. Your residential address, you want to make sure that the address is a place where you can receive mail, but it cannot be a P.O. box. You can use one of those street address UPS stores or something like that if you need to. Otherwise, it needs to be a residential address. Phone number, there must be something there. I can't imagine anyone's going to call you, but you have to put something there, okay? Email, you want to make sure that you put a good email there. The email is going to be where they send your confirmation and any subsequent updates. So you want to make sure that's a good email there. Date business established. The business must be established before 2020, okay? It doesn't matter what month, what day, what year. It needs to be before 2020. And again, like I said, that comes into play specifically when you talk about rental losses and rental revenue. You need to make sure those dates match on the tax return and on the application. All right. Current ownership. Unless you purchase this business from someone, the current ownership is going to be the same exact date as when the business was established. All right. Business activity. Let's talk about this a little bit. There's a lot of options here. Again, it's completely up to you how you want to do this, okay? Automotive repair, that's a mobile mechanic, right? Construction and contractors, that's going to be a handyman. That's going to be a painter. That's going to be someone working in construction, right? What else? Legal services, okay? That's going to be paralegal services. That's a service, right? And then we have, I thought retail was in here somewhere. I thought it was. There we go, retail. Yeah, so if you're selling things, if you're selling clothes, if you're selling things online, that's going to be retail, okay? If you're selling plates, if you're selling food, okay, it's going to be food and beverages, right? All right. Detailed business activity. Sorry, that's going to be, you have to first choose a business activity. Okay, detailed business activity. This is just going to be, a more. Now, you can always choose none of the below. Matter of fact, that's what I suggest you do in every situation. No matter what the business activity is here, you can choose none of the below. Why pigeonhole yourself, right? All right, number of employees. Now, let's talk about this. This is a big, big, big deal, all right? The grant is $1,000 per employee, okay? If you're going, and include yourself, all right? Now, if you're going to include other employees on your application, you want to make sure that you are actually W-2ing that means filing a W-2 for these employees. Okay, it's really easy to do. It only costs a couple dollars to file a W-2. I'll place that link in the description of the video, so you can have that. And okay, so you can have that. So I got to put something in here so we can go to the next thing. All right. You need to make sure you file a W-2 for these employees. Okay. Now, if the employees are your family members, and what I mean by family is immediate family, parents, brothers, kids, okay, spouse. When you W-2 them, you don't have to pay payroll tax. All right. If the person does not work, if they don't have an income, you can W-2 them up to $12,200 in 2019, and they won't have to pay taxes. They aren't required to file a tax return. Okay, I'll say this again just to make sure everyone understands. If you have, father, mother, brother, sister, children, okay, and the children must be at least, the IRS says that the children need to be, old enough to have some job, because remember, you're paying them to work. So if they're 2, it's going to be hard to validate them actually holding down a job and getting paid. All right. So again, we want to make sure the children are of age to do some sort of work. All right. You can pay them up to $12,200 a year. They won't have to pay taxes. They won't have to file a tax return. And you yourself will not have to pay payroll taxes. All right. Same thing goes for your brother, your sister, and your parents. You won't have to pay payroll taxes. And if they aren't working, then they won't have to pay taxes on the money you're filing on the W-2. Now, I'm going to talk about this just a little bit, just to make sure everyone understands. Let's say you have a brother who made $4,000 in 2019. Well, that means you can W-2 your brother $8,000, right? And he still won't have to file a tax return. He still won't have to pay any taxes on that $8,000 that you're putting on the W-2 for him. Okay? That's how it works. All right. Just as long as you stay under that $12,000, you're good. Now, again, it's $1,000 per employee. You can have as many employees as you want. I see the thing here says number of employees should be, was that 1 million or less? That's crazy. So we'll just put 1 for now. Okay. And I may do another video to show you how to file a W-2. It's very simple. And again, I'll put the link in the video here. So is your business owned by a business entity? We're going to say no here. Again, this can have some really great implications. So remember, we talked about having a partnership and being able to file the partnership, being able to file your social, being able to file your spouse's social. Okay. Well, that partnership can also own another company. Maybe it owns a corporation. Maybe it owns another partnership. Who knows? But the point is, that's what that question there is asking for. Okay. All right. So in our case, we're going to say the business is not owned by another business. It's owned by a person. All right. So here you're just going to put in your business, sorry, not your business, but your personal information here. The title office doesn't matter. Okay. The ship percentage is always going to be 100, unless, like I said, this is a partnership or maybe it's a business owned by another business. Okay. Just going to put something here for the social and put a birth date in here. The place of birth, I'm not sure why that's there, but it's not as strict. So we don't have to put anything there. Okay. Again, you do have to be a U.S. citizen, so we want to make sure to click yes there. Again, the residential street address, make sure it's a street address and not a P.O. box. And of course, you can add additional owners if you need to down here at the bottom. All right. Next, so in the past year, has a business or listed owner been convicted of a felony committed during and in connection with a riot or civil disorder or other declared disaster, or ever been engaged in the production or distribution of any product or service that has been determined to be obscene by a court of competent jurisdiction? Now, what this means to me is, have you been convicted of a felony? Now, the felonies that they're asking about are specific, right? It has to be a felony committed during and in connection with a riot or civil disorder. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with Mr. Trump, or other declared disaster, right? So if you got jailed and charged with a felony because you were part of the riots, then this is not going to work. Or have you ever been engaged in the production or distribution of any product or service that's been determined to be obscene by a court of competent jurisdiction? I think that may be child pornography. I'm not completely sure at this point. I assume that if you are one of these people, you'll know, okay? So we're all going to say no there. Is the applicant or any listed owner currently suspended or disbarred from contracting with the federal government or receiving federal grants or loans? Again, if you're one of those people, I assume you will know that, okay? Are you presently subject to an indictment, criminal information, arraignment, or other means by which formal criminal charges are brought in any jurisdiction? And what this means is have you been charged with a crime? Are you currently on some sort of probation? Are you currently going to court on some charge? Okay, if you are, I at this point have to assume that you will not be eligible for this particular grant. Okay, and then it asks, within the last 5 years, for any felony, have you ever been convicted, pled guilty, pled no contest, been placed on pretrial diversion, or been placed on any form of parole or probation before the judgment? So again, within the last 5 years, right? Have you been guilty? Have you been charged with anything? Have you been on probation at all? I spoke to a young lady just I think today or yesterday that asked, I just got off of probation. Am I eligible for this? Well, if you were placed on probation within the last 5 years, or if you have been on probation in the last 5 years, I have to assume that you will not be eligible for this. At the same time, contact SBA and ask. I haven't asked, honestly, so I'm not entirely sure. I have to assume that if you have been on probation at all within the last 5 years, you're not going to be eligible. If you have pled no contest in the last 5 years, you're not going to be eligible. All right. All right. Last question. If anyone assisted you in completing this application, of course, you want to put their information here. I had this conversation with someone the other day. I think it may actually be beneficial to have someone with some sort of licensure complete this for you. I think it gives you a better look, right? But of course, there's nothing wrong with completing this on your own at all. And then, of course, you want to check the box to say you want to be considered for the advance. Like I said, it's $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. And then, of course, your bank name and your account number and your routing number go there. All right. So that is it. You want to make sure that you certify under penalties of perjury and all that goodness. Click next, and you will receive a email confirmation saying that your application has been submitted. If you're not getting that email confirmation, I have to assume that you did not submit your application, and you may want to contact the SBA to find out for sure. The reason why that's so important is because the last thing you want to do is to file this application with 3, 4, 5 different numbers in the boxes. Okay. I'll tell you my own experience when all this stuff first started back in March. I applied for this. I sent it in. I got my email confirmation. And then I heard stories on TV and social media saying, oh, everyone has to reapply, blah, blah, blah. I knew better. I wasn't going to reapply because I didn't want to take the chance of putting a different number on the application than the first time I filed the application. So I said, screw it. I will just wait. And I did. And I waited and ended up getting the money sometime in June. So that's my advice to you. If you're not getting the email confirmation, don't just come in here and reapply unless you know for sure you're using the same exact numbers that you used the first time. Call the SBA, find out if any sort of application has been posted or if they've received anything under your Social Security number, EI number. If they haven't, if they're saying no, we don't have anything, then you know what? Go ahead and reapply. But until you have that confirmation from them that they don't have anything for you, I don't suggest just reapplying, because that's going to look real suspect if you send in one application with $3,000, send in a second application with $6,000. You got to be careful with that stuff. All right, I think that's it. What I will do is one last thing, because I think this is important, and I'm going to see if I can find it very quickly. If I can't, then, we may just move on. But let's see here. Family help. All right, here we go. So one of the advantages of operating your own business is hiring family members. However, employment tax requirements for family employees may vary from those that apply to other employees. The following information may assist you with pointing out some differences to consider. All right. Payments for the services of a child under age 18 who works for his or her parent in a trade or business are not subject to Social Security and Medicare taxes if the trade or business is a sole proprietorship or a partnership in which each partner is a parent of the child. Okay. One spouse employed by another spouse. It says the wages for services of an individual who works for his or her spouse in a trade or business are subject to income tax withholding and Social Security and Medicare taxes, but not unemployment taxes or unemployment insurance tax. Wages for the services of a parent employed by his or her child in a trade or business are subject to income withholding and Social Security and Medicare taxes. All right. So if you pay your children, you don't have to pay payroll taxes. If it is a spouse you're paying, if it's parents you're paying, you do have to pay payroll taxes. All right. I'll make sure I put this link in the video description as well. From me to you, I'll holla.